Hey guys, you're probably wondering why the heck would anybody buy a wrecked insurance write-off car? Is it even possible to get it back on the road? Well, this is my story. It is possible, but what a mission. Watch the video and find out what I did. Cheers. First of all, this video is based in New Zealand, and if you want to get a car back on the road in New Zealand, you have to go through a rigorous certification process. So before you do anything like this yourself, you need to have a good chat to a certifier. There are repair certifiers around the country, and they need to sign off on these projects. So what you do is you take it to them, they'll inspect it, and they'll give you a rigorous report of what you need to fix and repair on the car to get it back into a safe state. So that's what I did. They gave me a huge list of things to do, and I just worked through them one by one. Some of them may or may not be possible, and that's why it's a bit of a risk doing this, but I thought I'll give it a go. I like a challenge, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of damage in this car. The main reason for write-off is airbag deployment, and then also the chassis rail has some structural damage, as you will see in a minute. This needs to be repaired and needs to be done to the BMW procedure. And in this particular case, the chassis rail needed to be replaced with a new chassis rail. So I purchased one from BMW, and I found a shop who was willing to do it. So the next step was to strip the car down so that it was a bare bulkhead with a chassis rail only. Now this is something that I was doing in my backyard and in my garage, so I just chipped away at it day after day in the evenings and things, and pulled things apart, noted down where things were, took heaps and heaps of photos, and yeah, when I came across something I couldn't undo properly, I'd go and buy a special tool or make something up, or just use my head and get through it. But it's actually really good fun. I enjoyed doing it. Yeah, as long as you're methodical, you'll be able to work through it all. I've got a mechanical engineering background, so sort of putting things together and taking things apart comes naturally to me, but that's probably one of the reasons why I took this project on. It's not going to be for everybody, and that's usually why things are written off, because it's too hard basket for most people. So these cars end up being scrapped, which is such a shame, because they're perfect cars really. It's just a wee bit of damage that needs to be fixed. In some cases, write-offs are actually completely wrecked, but there are a lot of cars which have relatively small pieces of damage that can be repaired if you have the time. This project took me over a year of just working through all the detail and stuff, so generally that's too long for most people, too long for any insurance company or anything like that, and that's why they end up turning into scrap parts cars. Now that the engine's out, the car's ready to be taken in to get its chassis rail repaired. So loaded it up on a car trailer, took it in, and it got put onto a chassis plant where they could pull the chassis rail straight, cut it out, and then replace it with the new BMW chassis rail. It was followed to a BMW procedure, so everything was done correctly and to the right specs and finish. And the certifier also reviewed this process during it and before and after, and made sure he was happy with everything. Then it got painted. I had to pull the subframe off to be able to give a bit more access, but I left it on there to keep the car mobile up until that point. Yeah, look underneath there, there's a lot of things to take off that rail, and when I got it back, putting it back together, I was like, oh, so many wires, so many tubes, so many clips, and it's pretty daunting. Gives you a bit of anxiety, but I had them all in bags and stuff, so I just worked through it in reverse, putting it back together, and and the further you go, the easier it gets. So yeah, when it's on the chassis plant, it's a good opportunity to do 3D measurements as well. That's required for certs. So out with the old chassis rail, it's cut out, getting prepped for the new one, and then the new ones to go back in. Played a 3D measure to make sure it's all within spec, while I was having this done, I was collecting up parts and bits and pieces coming. This is the bumper that arrived, so it's always exciting when new parts are come. You can check them out, and feels like you're making progress. There's quite a few bits and pieces to buy for this job, so you can see the boys helping out as well. They're excited about the project. They especially like sitting in it and watching what I'm doing. So yeah, it's cool, it's good fun. I had to replace a lens on one of the lights, so I gave that a go as well. It seemed to work reasonably successfully. And then on the right hand light I had to buy a replacement, which I got as a second hand part because the brand new part was retailing for $4,500. So yeah, the price of parts can stack up really quickly. You need to keep your existing LED drivers because they swap into the lights that you get any replacements. Otherwise, yeah, you have faults and errors which you want to avoid. And there's some SRS components now arriving. So new seat belts, the driver's seat which was occupied during the accident, the seatbelt locked up and activated, so that you need to replace all those parts. And also the driver's airbag, the passenger's airbag, and the driver's curtain airbag had gone off as well. So I had to replace all of those with brand new items. They must be brand new or traceable to a car that has not had any water damage or anything like that. But the certified goes through all that with you. I found it much easier just to replace them with brand new because then you got invoices and traceability, which is what they're after. Hey, look at that rail, it's back in, and they did an exceptional job, and now I'm putting on a trailer and taking it back home. They also did painting of a new side guard for me, and later on I took the replacement bumper in for them to touch up the paint colour on that as well. But it's very exciting getting it home. This was a bit of a milestone moment as well, having it home, and I can start putting things back together. I've made a few more videos about this car, so subscribe to my channel and you can end up watching those as well. Time to put it all back together. Let's see how I go. Major milestone here. The engine is back in. Woohoo! You wouldn't believe the pipes and tube spaghetti that you have to connect up. Luckily, I got all the ones at the back connected before I put the engine in, so I didn't have to pull the engine back out, which was a relief. Here's a clip of me putting in the curtain airbag on the driver's side. I found it reasonably easy to do. I just followed the reverse steps of taking it out, the pushing clips and things, and it Torx bolts at either end, and then making sure you're gentle with the connectors and things like that. I probably don't need to say this, but I want to anyway. Don't try this at home. I don't want you to follow me and get yourself in trouble. I did all this on my own account and my own risk. I put the steering wheel back on while I was doing other parts of the repair, but now it's time to pull it back off so I can try and get this dash back into place. Does anyone think I'm going to be able to get all these wires back together? I don't know. There's a lot to remember here. Some people might think I'm a bit crazy, but I think I can do it. Getting the engine back in was a mission. There were so many plugs and hoses to get done up. I ended up taking bits and pieces in and out several times. But yeah, big sense of relief once it all goes back together. This is the lower strap. T50 Torx bolt down there. A clip to which slides up here. Down there. That slides the other way. There's a little clip under here that pulls out, and then that cable was attached to the SRS module underneath. And put the new one in there. This is the new one already. As you can see, new airbags in, all the screws are done up, and this is ready to go back into the car. When the airbag goes off, the dash airbag will split the dash in half. Well, it'll make a big hole anyway, but you can't repair this. This needs to be replaced with another complete dash. So I found a second-hand one, fortunately, which was the same model and looked exactly the same. So I got that, and here's just an image of me prepping to put it back in after putting the new airbag in there. So there's lots of little screws and things holding it in. I've made another video to show you how to do the dash removal, but it's relatively easy. It's just lots of wires and stuff. Here it is going back in. I did it by myself, so you don't need two people to do it. It might have been a bit easier with two, but I can do it myself. I got it in there, and like I said, I just chipped away at this in the evenings. An hour here and an hour there. I did it for enjoyment, and yeah, you get a kick out of getting it all back together and getting things working. Done. Job done. Pretty much. Now the front end's starting to come together. I got the radiators in. I got the air conditioning condenser back in. I've had that system recharged and tested by a local guy, which is cool. It's working well. Got to get the guards on and a few other bits of trim and stuff, and I'm waiting for the bumper to come back from paint. But it's coming together. It's not far away. It's very exciting. I never thought I'd be able to get to this point. Halfway through the project, I thought it was a lost cause and it was going to get too expensive, too hard, and too many things to do. But yeah, it is pretty cool when you get to that point. Here's another piece of the SRS system. It's the front bumper sensor, and it goes in that foam insert which sits on the front of the collision beam. So that's out, that's back in place and ready to go on. And here's the parking distance sensors. I was just putting them back in to try them and test them, and use the scan tool to see if they're all working properly. I had to play around with these a couple of times because I mixed them up, but got them right in the end. And I'm just doing some stuff like chucking on the fenders or guards, if you call them. It's, one of the last things I need to do to get the front end back together, so it's pretty cool that I can get that on. And yeah, if you have any questions about certification or anything like that, then the best place to have a look is actually on the vehicle inspection and repair manual that's on the NZTA website. You can go on there and have a look at light vehicle repair and light vehicle, and you can search anything you want to, and it gives you all the rules on what you can and can't do. But again, like I said at the start, you want to be talking to a certifier to start with, a repair certifier, and they'll give you a list of things to do. And a lot of things you might need to get contractors to do, such as checks on the SRS system once you're finished, and calibration of the front cameras and things on the windscreen. The passenger airbag, when it went off, it actually cracked the front windscreen, so I had to replace it with a new one, and then they had to be recalibrated. That was done at BMW, and everything checked out okay, so that was cool. Now there's a few more bits in the dash to get back together, and I want to get all that back in place before I can chuck the steering wheel back on. Things like these switches and buttons, they all need to go back into place and connected up to the right plugs. They actually come out relatively easily, and they pop back in relatively easy. You don't need to use much force at all, really. There's clips. Being a new car, everything's really nice. In contrast, I'm working on an old Land Rover, and that is, you can spend days just trying to get a bolt undone, so it's quite nice, really. And then you can see I've got it back together. The next thing is to use the scan tool just to reset airbags and things. And I use this Ansell BM700, which is a cheap tool. It's BMW specific, and it had the X2 program on there, and it worked really, really well. Like, I was so surprised at how well it went. And it would show you codes. For example, it would show you something wasn't plugged up, and it made it really easy to see what you were missing and things. When I put in the roof lining, there was a couple of lights and I had them around the wrong way, but it actually told me there was a fault with that line, so it was pretty easy to work it out after a bit of googling and stuff. So yeah, highly recommend that tool if you're just looking for a cheap one to try it before spending a fortune on having someone with an expensive tool scan stuff. It's time to push the start button and see if it all goes. This was a nervous day, but it was also really exciting to actually see it running for the first time in a long time. And there's a few errors and bits and pieces still to fix up, but I was just working away on them one by one. So for the most part, it's back together and ready to go. Bumper's on, the shade of colour's not quite right, so that needs to be painted. And this is me loading it onto a car, or taking it off actually, but I took it in to get some checks done and make sure everything was working properly, and that was all part of the certification process. And here it is at the end, all finished. So exciting. If you have any questions, just let me know, guys. I'll see if I might better make some more videos. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I certainly did, and hope you get value out of my video. So thank you very much for watching. See you in the next project.